Before Lagos woke up, before the traffic began its daily battle, before the sounds of downfalls and generators filled the streets, Amaka was already awake. At exactly 4:30 a.m. every morning, she would leave her bed, tie a wrapper around her waist, and head into the small compound kitchen. She wasn't rich. She didn't have a restaurant. She didn't even have enough money to hire a permanent worker. But Amaka had something money wouldn't buy. She had a dream. As she watched her tomatoes, peppers, and onions under the dim security lights, she would always whisper to herself, one day, this small pot will become a big restaurant. She just didn't know how soon that day would come. Mama Amaka watched her daughter stir the thick tomato sauce. Amaka, add a little more pepper. Mommy, if I add more pepper, Lagos people will start looking for water. Mama Amaka laughed. Then let them drink water. Your food must have character. Amaka smiled. Cooking wasn't just work to her. It was a passion. Every grain of rice had to be perfect. Every piece of chicken had to be well seasoned. And a jollof had to have that smoky taste that made people close their eyes after the first bite. Mama Amaka often told her, a good cook doesn't only feed the stomach, she feeds the memory. Amaka didn't want the depth of those words then. She would later. By 7 a.m., Amaka was already on the roadside. Her entire business consisted of one folding table, two large coolers, a few plastic chairs, and a small umbrella. At the front was a handwritten sign, Madam Jollof, rice, chicken, and plantain. Bisi, her best friend, helped her arrange everything. Madam, today we are selling out completely. Amaka laughed. You said that yesterday, and yesterday we almost sold out. Almost doesn't pay rent. Both women laughed. Then the first customer arrived, and another, and another. Before long, the smell of smoky jollof rice was competing with Lagos traffic. By noon, the little roadside stand had become one of the busiest spots on the street. Office workers came, students came, bus conductor came. Even some taxi drivers had become regular customers. Madam Jollof, Amaka looked up. Yes, please give me 2 portions. Extra chicken. Extra chicken cost extra. The man laughed. Madam, you don't trust me? I trust you. I don't trust your appetite. Everyone laughed. Bisi collected payment while Amaka served. There was something about her food. People didn't just eat it. They talked about it. That night, Amaka returned home exhausted. After bathing, she sat on her bed and stared at the drawing taped to her wall. It was a picture of a beautiful restaurant. At the top, she had written, Madam Jollof Restaurant, Lagos. Amaka looked at the drawing. Big sister, Ada looked at the drawing. Big sister, when are you opening this restaurant? Very soon. You have been saying very soon for 2 years. Amaka smiled. Maybe my very soon is different from your very soon. Ada laughed. But after Ada left the room, Amaka looked at the drawing again. She wasn't joking. She wanted it badly. But dreams don't always grow in sunshine. Sometimes they grow in storms. One afternoon, Lagos rain came down heavily. Customers disappeared. The road became almost empty. Water flooded the pavement. Amaka stood beneath her umbrella staring at the 3 large coolers of unsold food. Bisi, what are we going to do with all this food? Bisi sighed. I don't know. Amaka looked at the rice. She had spent almost all her money preparing it. If couldn't sell it, she would lose money. That night, she went home with barely enough to cover transportation, but she still woke up the next morning and she cooked again. One morning, an elderly security guard approached her stand. Madam, how much is small rice? Amaka looked at him. 1.5. The man opened his wallet. He counted his money. He had only 700 naira. He quietly turned around. Wait! Amaka called him back. She filled a container with rice, plantain, and chicken. The man looked surprised. Madam, I don't have enough money. I know. Then why are you giving me this? Amaka smiled. Because you are hungry. The man blessed her. Unknown to Amaka, someone had watched the entire scene. A young man sitting inside a black Range Rover. His name was Tunde. The next morning, the same black Range Rover stopped beside Amaka's stand. Tunde stepped out. The customers became quiet for a moment. He approached the table. Are you Madam Jollof? Amaka looked at him suspiciously. Who is asking? Tunde smiled. The man who watched you feed an old security guard yesterday. Amaka relaxed. Oh, yes, I want to order. How many portions? Just one. Bisi whispered behind Amaka. One Range Rover customer. Amaka ignored her. She served him, and Tunde took the first bite. Tunde expected good food. He didn't expect that. He took one bite, then another, then another. He looked at the food. He looked at Amaka. Who taught you how to cook? My mother. She did a good job. Amaka smiled. Tunde finished everything. Then he said something that will change their life. I have a corporate event next month. 300 guests. Amaka froze. 300? Yes. Guests? Yes. 300? Tunde laughed. Yes, Amaka, 300. He gave her his business card. I want you to cater it. The moment Tunde drove away, Amaka turned to Bisi. 300? Bisi screamed. 300 people? What have I done? You said yes. I know. You want a big opportunity. I didn't know the opportunity would be 300 people. They both stared at each other. Then Bisi smiled. Madam Jollof is going big. Amaka took a deep breath. For the first time, her dream didn't seem impossible. It seemed frighteningly close. The entire compound became a kitchen. Rice sacks filled this corner. Tomato covered the table. Chicken were marinated in enormous bowls. Mama Amaka supervised the cooking. Ada washed vegetables. Bisi checked the supplies. Amaka moved from one station to another. Make sure the chicken is properly seasoned. Yes. Check the rice. Yes. Where are the takeaway packs? Bisi, I have them. They walked through the night. Amaka barely slept because she knew one thing. This wasn't just another order. It was a chance. The big day finally came. They loaded everything into a rented delivery van halfway to Victoria Island. The van stopped. Amaka looked outside. No. The driver opened the bonnet. Smoke came out. No, no, no. Bisi started calling people. Cars passed them. Danfos horned. Lagos traffic continued as if nothing had happened. Amaka stood beside the fan, praying. God, please, not today. Then she looked at Bisi. We are not failing. They quickly transferred the food into another vehicle and continued. When Amaka entered the wedding venue, she almost forgot to breathe. It was beautiful. Crystal chandeliers, gold decorations, flowers everywhere, richly dressed guests. She looked down at her simple catering uniform. Then she looked around. One day, she whispered, one day I will have something like this. But there was no time to dream. She had work to do. The moment the buffet opens, guests rushed towards the food. One guest took a plate, then another, then another. Soon, people began asking, who cooked this food? Where is the caterer? This jollof is incredible. Amaka watched them from the side. Bisi ran towards her. Madam, what? They are coming back for more. Amaka smiled. She knew then the food had spoken for her. Among the guests was Sarah, a popular lifestyle influencer. She took one bite of the jollof. Her eyes widened. She immediately brought out her phone and said, guys, she turned the camera towards herself. I don't know who made this jollof, but Lagos people, we have found something. She filmed the food, she filmed Amaka, she filmed the buffet, and before the wedding ended, thousands of people had seen it. The next morning, Amaka woke up to her phone vibrating non-stop. She opened WhatsApp, messages, Instagram, TikTok, messages, WhatsApp, messages, Instagram, messages, unknown numbers, more messages. Bisi rushed into the room. Amaka, what? We are viral. Viral. Ow. Madam Jollof is everywhere. Amaka stared at her phone. For the first time, strangers were calling her food business by name, Madam Jollof. The name she once wrote on a piece of paper had become a brand. Orders started coming faster than she could handle. Corporate lunches, birthdays, weddings, burials, office meetings, private parties. Everyone wanted Madam Jollof. The little roadside stand could barely cope. Bisi's phone never stopped ringing. Amaka couldn't serve quickly enough. One afternoon, she looked at the long queue. She smiled. Then she whispered, maybe it is time. It is time to leave the roadside. Amaka found a small shop in Surulere. It wasn't beautiful. The walls were old. The tiles were damaged. The ceiling needed repairs. But Amaka saw something different. She saw a restaurant. She stood in the middle of the empty room. Yeah. Bisi looked at her. Yeah, what? This is where Madam Jollof will live. Bisi smiled. Finally, Amaka signed the agreement. Her dream had officially begun. Weeks later, the little restaurant opened. The sign outside read, Madam Jollof. Amaka stood at the entrance wearing a beautiful Ankara gown. Amaka stood beside her. Bisi was smiling, and Tunde had come. Customers filled the restaurant. People took photographs. Children laughed. The smell of jollof filled the air. Amaka looked around. She remembered the folding table, the umbrella, the raining days, the 700 naira security guard. She almost cried. Tunde started visiting regularly, sometimes for lunch, sometimes for dinner, sometimes the crazy was checking on business. Bisi knew better. One evening, she whispered to Amaka, Madam, that man is not coming for jollof. Amaka laughed. What else could he be coming for? Bisi smiled. You, of course. Amaka blushed. She quickly turned away. But secretly, she liked him too. Across the street was another restaurant. It belongs to Vanessa. For years, Vanessa had considered herself one of the biggest food business owners in the area. But now, something has changed. Every day, people crowded into Madam Jollof. She stood behind the glass window watching Amaka laugh with customers. Her expression hardened. How did she do it? Her manager said quietly, people love the food. Vanessa replied, I know, but she didn't like it. One afternoon, Vanessa disguised herself as a customer. She entered Madam Jollof. She ordered rice. She took one bite, then another. For a moment, her jealousy disappeared because the food was genuinely good, very good. But instead of appreciating it, Vanessa became more frustrated. This woman is becoming too powerful. She left quietly and began thinking. Success brought another problem. Everyone suddenly needed Amaka. A cousin needed school fees. An uncle needed hospital money. A friend needed rent. Someone wanted a loan. Another person wanted her to employ them. Amaka began feeling trapped. Mama Amaka warned her. My daughter, success does not mean you must carry everybody. Amaka nodded. But saying no wasn't easy. She wanted everyone around her to be happy. She didn't realize that sometimes kindness without boundaries becomes a burden. Then came an even bigger opportunity. A major company hired Madam Jollof to cater a corporate conference. Hundreds of meals, professional packaging, strict deadlines. Amaka wore a blazer and walked through the hotel ballroom, inspecting everything. For the first time, she didn't look like a roadside food seller. She looked like a CEO. Tunde watched proudly. "You have come a long way." Amaka smiled. "Not yet." She looked around the ballroom. "I want more." Madam Jollof was no longer just one woman cooking rice. She now had employees, delivery riders, managers, suppliers, accountants, corporate clients. Amaka began learning about business. She learned about profit, customer service, inventory, marketing, branding, and she learned one important lesson. Cooking could start a business, but management was what made it survive. Vanessa watched everything from a distance. She became more bitter. One night, she sat in her office with her laptop. She created an anonymous social media account, then another. She began writing, "Don't eat at Madam Jollof. Something is wrong with her food. People are getting sick." She pressed send, then she smiled. She didn't know that the truth would eventually find her. The next morning, Amaka received a message. She opened it. A post accused Madam Jollof of causing food poisoning. Amaka's heart dropped. BC came over. What happened? Amaka showed her. BC shook her head. "This is a lie." Then another post appeared, and another. Within hours, the accusations were spreading. Customers began cancelling orders. People who had eaten there for months suddenly became suspicious. Some comments were cruel, others were frightening. Amaka stood in the restaurant looking at empty tables. The same place that once couldn't contain customers was now quiet. She whispered, "Why?" BC hugged her. "We will find out who is behind this." But Amaka wasn't thinking about revenge. She was thinking about the people who depended on her. Then came the call she feared most. A major wedding client cancelled. "I am sorry," the woman said. "We cannot risk it." Amaka sat down. She looked at the hundreds of food packs they had prepared. All that food, all that money, all that work, gone. For the first time since starting Madam Jollof, Amaka cried. BC sat beside her. Neither woman spoke. The next morning, health inspectors arrived. Customers gathered outside. Phones came out. People started recording. Amaka stood calmly while inspectors examined the kitchen. She knew her food was clean. She knew her staff followed the rules, but fear didn't care about facts. Across the road, Vanessa watched. She smiled. She thought she had won. That evening, Amaka sat alone inside the restaurant. The chairs were empty. The tables were clean. The kitchen was silent. She stared at the pot of rice. Maybe this is the end. Then the door opened. Tunde walked in. He looked around, then sat beside her. "I don't believe them." Amaka looked at him. "You don't even know if they are telling the truth." "I know you." That sentence gave her a little strength. Tunde held her hands. "You built this business from nothing." Amaka looked down. "I don't know if I can rebuild it." "You don't need to rebuild it tonight." He smiled. "Just don't destroy it yourself by giving up." Amaka remained silent. Then she nodded. Maybe he was right. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was simply another storm. That night, BC called Amaka. "Come and see this." They sat together looking at screenshots. One anonymous account, then another account. The same writing style, the same thing. Then they discovered something else, a payment record. Someone has been paying a social media assistant to spread the rumors. Amaka's eyes widened. "Who?" BC looked at her. "Vanessa." Silence filled the room. Amaka couldn't believe it. BC became furious. "We should expose her." Amaka stood up immediately. Mama Amaka raised her hand. "Sit down." They obeyed. "Anger is not evidence." Mama Amaka continued. "If you fight with anger, you may destroy yourself while trying to destroy someone else." Amaka took a deep breath. "So what should we do?" Mama Amaka answered. tell the truth, and let the truth do the fighting. The next morning, Amaka sat in front of a camera. She didn't insult Vanessa. She didn't shout. She didn't present the fact. She simply presented the facts. She showed health inspection records, customer testimonials, food safety documents, screenshots, payment evidence. Then she said, I built Madam Jollof with my hands. I will not allow lies to destroy it. The video went viral again, and this time, people weren't laughing, they were listening. Within days, customers began returning. One person came, then 5, then 20. Soon, the restaurants were full again. People shared Amaka's stories. Food bloggers defended her. Long-time customers spoke about their experiences. Madam Jollof survived, and this time, she came back stronger. Amaka looked around the packed restaurant. She smiled. She had learned something. Not everyone who applauds you wants you to succeed, but not everyone who sees you struggle will abandon you either. Vanessa's action eventually became public. Customers stopped visiting her restaurant. Her employees left. Her reputation collapsed. One evening, she sat alone in the restaurant. The same table she once considered superior were empty. She looked at her phone. Hundreds of angry messages. She had wanted Amaka to lose everything. Instead, she had lost herself. Amaka learned from the experience. She stopped trying to do everything herself. She hired professionals. She created systems. She held management meetings. She trained her staff. She created proper financial records. Madam Jollof became a real company, not just a restaurant, a brand. Amaka had gone from cooking beside a roadside umbrella to sitting at the head of a boardroom table. One evening after closing, Tunde remained behind. Amaka was cleaning the counter. Amaka, yes, I have something to tell you. She stood, looked at him. I didn't keep coming here because of the food. Amaka smiled. I knew. Tunde laughed. I love you. Amaka became quiet. She had spent years building a business. She didn't realize she has also built a life. She smiled too. I love you too. Their first proper date was by the Lagos waterfront. No customers, no orders, no business calls, just the two of them. They talked about childhood, dreams, families, failure, success. Then Tunde asked, if you could have anything now, what would it be? Amaka thought for a moment. A bigger restaurant. Tunde laughed. Of course, she laughed too. But deep down, she knew there was something else she wanted. A peaceful life. A few months later, Amaka found an empty commercial space in Lekki. It was much bigger than her Surulere restaurant. Bisi looked around. This place is expensive. Amaka smiled. I know. Tunde asked, are you sure? Amaka looked at the empty space. I started with one table. She smiled. I think I am ready for 10. They signed the lease. Construction began. Walls were painted. Lights were installed. African artwork were placed on the walls. A modern kitchen was built. Amaka was involved in everything. She reviewed plans, checked equipment, interviewed staffs. She didn't want the new restaurant to lose what made Madam Jollof special. It had to feel modern, but it still had to taste like home. Opening day arrived. The new restaurant was beautiful. Customers stood outside. Influencers arrived. Photographers took pictures. The illuminated sign read Madam Jollof. Amaka stood beneath it in her elegant Ankara dress. She looked around. This was no longer a dream on a bedroom wall. It was real. Late that night, after everyone left, Amaka walked through the empty restaurant. She touched the counter. She looked at the kitchen. Then she closed her eyes. For a moment, she could almost see herself standing beside her old roadside table, the umbrella, the plastic bowls. the raining days, the first pot of rice. She smiled. Look at us now. Not long after, Tunde planned a surprise. Amaka walked into a beautifully decorated room, flowers everywhere, soft music, family members hiding nearby. Then Tunde walked towards her. He knelt down. Amaka covered her mouth. Amaka, he opened the ring box. Will you marry me? Tears filled her eyes. She looked at her mother, at Bisi, at Ada, then at Tunde. Yes, everyone screamed, and Amaka laughed through her tears. Their wedding was a celebration of everything they had survived. Family gathered, friends danced, music filled the room. Amaka looked beautiful, but when she saw Bisi dancing, she laughed so hard she almost forgot she was the bride. Bisi shouted, Madam Jollof, don't start crying. Amaka laughed. Leave me. That day wasn't about business. It wasn't about money. It was about love, family, and a new beginning. Years passed. Amaka and Tunde built a family. Their daughter became the center of their home. But Amaka never abandoned Madam Jollof. She learned to balance motherhood and business. Sometimes she worked from home. Sometimes she carried her daughter into the office. Sometimes a little girl sat beside her while she reviewed documents. Amaka had finally learned that success wasn't only about how much money you made. It is also about who you came home to. One day, Amaka opened a training program for women who wanted to start food business. She taught them everything she had learned: how to cook, how to price food, how to package, how to market, how to manage money, and most importantly, how to start small. One woman asked, Madam, what if nobody believes in me? Amaka smiled. Believe in yourself until they have no choice but to notice. One afternoon, an elderly man entered the Surulere branch. Amaka looked at him carefully. Then she recognized him. It was the security guard from years ago, the man who once had only 700 naira. She ran towards him. Sir, he smiled. Madam Jollof. She hugged him. Then she filled a large food bag for him. He looked around the restaurant. You have done well. Amaka smiled. No, sir. You were one of the first people who believed in me. On the restaurant wall hung a photograph. It showed young Amaka beside a tiny roadside store. Underneath it were the words, never despise small beginnings. Thousands of customers passed that picture every year, but Amaka always stopped to look at it, because she never wanted to forget who she was. Before the restaurant, before the money, before the fame, she was simply a woman with a pot of rice and a dream. Madam Jollof continued growing. A new branch opened in Ikeja. Then more delivery bikes appeared, more employees, more customers, more opportunities. Amaka no longer had to cook every single pot herself, but she still visited the kitchen because she wanted to make sure every plate carried the same love. The business was growing, but her values remained the same. One afternoon, Vanessa requested to meet Amaka. They sat in a quiet cafe. Vanessa looked different. There was no arrogance, no designer sunglasses, no jealousy, just a tired woman. I am sorry, Vanessa said. Amaka remained silent. I was jealous of you. Vanessa looked down. I thought your success was taking something away from me. Amaka finally spoke. You could have built your own success. Vanessa nodded. I know. Amaka forgave her, not because what Vanessa did was acceptable, but because Amaka didn't want to carry hatred into the future. Sunday was different. No meetings, no business calls, just family. Mama Amaka cooked in the kitchen. Tunde carried their daughter. Ada and Bisi laughed. Amaka tasted Mama's stew. Mommy, you still cook better than me. Mama Amaka smiled. I told you, a good cook feeds the memory. Everyone laughed. For the first time in years, Amaka realized that her greatest success wasn't sitting in a restaurant. it was sitting around that table. Amaka eventually appeared on national television. The presenter asked, "What made you successful?" Amaka smiled. "Consistency." The presenter asked again, "What about the rumors?" Amaka paused. "The rumors taught me that success attracts both love and jealousy. And what will you tell women watching you?" Amaka leaned forward and said, "Start with what you have. Don't wait until everything is perfect." My small kitchen was a small compound. My first restaurant was a roadside table, but I treated that table like it was already a five-star restaurant. After the interview, Amaka noticed a young woman selling snacks on the streets. The girl looked tired. People walked past her without buying. Amaka stopped. "What are you selling?" "Chin chin and puff puff, ma." Amaka smiled. "How long have you been selling?" "Almost 1 year." "Do you want to grow?" The girl's eyes brightened. "Yes, ma." Amaka gave her a business card. "Come tomorrow." The girl looked confused. "Why?" Amaka smiled. "Because someone once gave me a chance to." Amaka began partnering with small food producers, women who made snacks, women who produced spices, women who baked, women who packaged drinks. Instead of competing with everyone, she created opportunities. Her business became an ecosystem, and the little roadside dream became a source of income for hundreds of people. Amaka finally understood something. Success becomes more meaningful when other people can grow because you succeeded. One night, Amaka and Tunde drove through Surulere. Tunde stopped the car. Amaka looked outside. There it was, the street where she had once sold jollof under an umbrella. The exact place. She stepped out. Cars moved around them. Downfall on. Street vendors called customers. Lagos was still Lagos, but Amaka was different. Tunde stood beside her. "Do you remember?" Amaka smiled. "Every single day." At home, Amaka's daughter discovered an old photograph. "Mommy, is this you?" Amaka smiled. "Yes." "But where is your restaurant?" Amaka laughed. "I don't have one." The little girl looks confused. "You didn't?" "No." "So where do you cook?" Amaka pointed at the old picture. "Right here." Her daughter stared at the tiny roadside store. Then she looked at her mother. "You became Madam Jollof from there?" Amaka nodded. "Yes, my darling." Years after the first pot of rice, Madam Jollof opened its biggest location yet in Lagos Island. The restaurant was enormous. The sign was bright. Customers filled the entrance. Photographers gathered. Delivery riders moved constantly. Amaka stood outside with Tunde, her daughter Mama Amaka, and Bisi. She looked at the building, then at her family, then at Lagos. She remembered the woman she used to be, and she whispered, "God, you really did it." That night, Lagos glittered. Traffic moved through the streets. Music played from nearby shops. Restaurants were filled. But outside the glowing Madam Jollof flagship restaurant stood Amaka, the woman who once struggled to sell one plate of rice was now the owner of a thriving food empire. Her husband stood beside her. Her daughter held her hand. And behind them, hundreds of people enjoyed the food that had started everything. Amaka looked at the illuminated sign, Madam Jollof. She smiled. Then she looked at her daughter. "My child." The little girl looked up. "Never be ashamed of starting small." The camera slowly pulls away. The restaurant becomes smaller. The busy Lagos street becomes wider. The city light stretches into distance. Because sometimes the biggest dreams begin with the smallest spot, and sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to give up.